G'day everyone, in today's video we're going to show you how to replace your manky old crusty old radiator hoses with brand new ones from Gates. So a great reason as to why you'd want to do this is because you may need to make emergency repairs on a long trip, but really the big reason is you should be doing this sort of preemptive repair and inspection like before you go on large trips, mostly to save yourself having catastrophe on the way. I mean, you're better off having brand new ones that absolutely definitely get you there, rather than bring along brand new ones and then have it cark out on the side of the road and ruin a trip. So yeah, personally, buy brand new hoses, keep the old ones as spare if they're appropriate. Okay, so I've just put together some bits and pieces you're going to need. So first thing you're going to need probably is actually the new hoses we want to replace. So here is your bottom hose and here's your top hose, along with a new set of hose clamps. You're going to need a funnel. Regular funnel will do, but I've got one of these coolant fill funnels, so that's handy. I'll use that. You're going to need a screwdriver set. You're going to need your socket set, a pair of pliers, and enough coolant to fill your vehicle, which is going to be, in this case, it's 9 litres, I believe, and a couple of buckets to do some drainage into. Alright, so once you've pulled yourself up and parked yourself in a position where you want to have it, first thing I've done is I've actually just went out and grabbed a drip tray. Now this isn't essential, you could also use cardboard if you're real keen. But I've thrown this drip tray down just because for the amount of cost they are to them, they're not expensive, and they're just, it'll save you having to clean up a huge mess. So that's the first thing that I've done. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to grab yourself your bucket, and then you're going to put yourself the bucket under your drain bung. It should be a little, like, you know, orange, like a little tap, or like a, this is just a plug and such, where we're just going to pull that out with that one there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to park that bucket under that hose bit, and then we're just going to undo that until coolant starts coming out of this. Now, you don't want to do this when your car's hot because you will burn yourself. Ask me how I know. The other thing about these little taps as well too is whatever you do, don't use tools, just use your hands, because you can, 1, and 2, you'll end up snapping these off, and they are, that's new radiator at that point, you know what I mean? Like, that's just going to do that. So mine's got a little bit of pressure on it, so I'm just going to undo that until it gets running. So as you can see, there was a little hole just there. It's just going to pour out. Now that'll take out, you know, the vast majority of it, but it may take a little bit of time for it to do. Theoretically, this is only 9 litres, so this 9.5 litre bucket should fit all the coolant, but keep an eye out. I've got a second bucket at the ready in case this overfills. Another tip, if you don't actually have one of these drain bugs on your radiator, which, I mean, you know, I don't know who wouldn't, but if you don't, what you can do is you can literally just take off your bottom radiator hose, and the same result, it'll just be, this will just be way messier. So to save the mess and my own effort, we're just doing that because that's the easiest way to go about it there. So the thing you want to do while you're working on this, for this whole process, basically you just want to switch your car to the hot side of your air conditioner system. That way you open up the heater core so that you can get all the coolant out of the heater core as well in case it's bad. But also having this open will help you bleed the system as well later when we go to fill it up. So a pro tip when you're draining your radiator to get the most of your radiator coolant out again is to actually pop the lid. That way when you do, what happens is air can come in from the top so that when it tries to escape from the bottom, it doesn't trickle out or bubble or anything like that, so it can flow freely into your drain pan. Okay. So we've got to that point now where it's just dripping, so we'll probably call it 99% of the coolant on it, and I'll just explain why a drip tray is so important. See, this is what's splashed out of it after filling it up to just that point, not even full yet really. So we'll do that bolt there up, that little bung there up, again with our fingers, not with any tools, and then we'll get started on replacing these hoses. Alright, so now that we've done that up to it stopped dripping, it seems pretty, like, it's not super, you know, like, it's not up to Achilles sort of grip, but it's definitely not tight, you know, like I've just done that up until it starts to hurt my hand to try and attempt it any further. We will checking that for leaks after we've done the job as well. We're going to attack the bottom radiator hose now, and now that we've emptied that much out of it, we should theoretically have emptied the vast majority out of there. But there still could be some in it, little bits and pieces here and there. So what we're going to do, we're going to move said bucket, and if it's not too full, maybe I'll use a fresh one, and park a bucket under this hose here, and then we're going to attempt to attack it with what appears to be, look, there's a hose clamp and then a hose clamp, like on my why? Anyway, we'll fix all of that up today, so that's no dramas at all. Alright, so I think the first part of this task is we're going to grab ourselves a flat-headed screwdriver, and we're just going to undo this here, oh, dirt. Oh, I probably shouldn't want dirt falling in that. I'm not using this anyway, so yeah, I'm saying undo this as much as we humanly can. Definitely don't want to be using this coolant again after this, because there's all that dirt has just now ended up in that coolant. As you can see, I've just dropped all that dirt in there. So, but we're doing this so that we can get all that. We've got all new coolant, enough to be able to do the car anyway. So this coolant will be properly recycled. It'll go back into the coolant bottles that we bought. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time taking that hose clamp, and I'm going to try and see if I can move it up like loosely up to like up here, so I can take this hose clamp off. Again, I don't know why there's two on here. Maybe there's some genius behind it. Leave it in the comments if you think this was a genius idea. Again, I don't know who left this on there, but yeah. Alright, sweet. So I've just managed to move that hose clamp, and I've just got it wedged a little bit up there, but it might fall down again, so I'm not super concerned about that. But now I'm going to need to grab myself a set of pliers to undo this hose clamp here. Now, people say that these hose clamps here are better because they automatically adjust due to spring tension, but if they're at that point where the hose itself is warped so that you don't get tension anymore, then this is still going to leak. I prefer the screwdriver style, but I mean, there's an argument to be had about either, so let me know in the comments which one you think is best. Okay, cool. So I've just moved that little hose clamp off of the actual hose itself here. So I've used these pliers just to squeeze that like so. Don't know how well you can see that because I'm not really monitoring the camera as such. But yeah, again, I squeezed this, and then the second I tried to attack this, basically the hose wants to go with the clamp. So I'm just going to slowly get to that point there where it starts to drain a bit. So I'm just going to slow. A lot could come out of this, so I'm just going to... Oh yeah, it seems to be slowing down. Cool. Now I've just flexed that hose off of the radiator. So, hose is off the radiator. Sometimes these can be a pain to get off, but looks like this wasn't too difficult at all. Maybe it was because, like, you know, wasn't on there super tight with that anyway, so but that's a good sign. I like that that's that there. Good, we've got that bottom half off now. Now let's go to the top half and then take that bit off there. Okay, so that bottom hose we've just disconnected, as you can see just there, is attached to the thermostat housing with another spring style clip, and we will be taking out the thermostat to check the condition of it to see if it's not rusted or anything like that as well too. So yeah, we're going to do the same thing again on this clamp just here at the top of this hose, just there. I'm touching my finger on now, and then we're going to remove that from there to be able to pull our hose out. Okay, so I've just got this spring clamp down halfway on the hose, but it's proven a bit difficult. It's a bit stuck on the actual thermostat housing, but fortunately enough, we're taking that off anyway. Now that's the lazy way to go about it. The other way to go about it is to grab screwdrivers and maybe like multi-grips or something and just twist and try and separate the rubber from the metal and just pull out of there. That way you don't have to take the housing of the thermostat off. Now I'm going to take the housing of the thermostat off anyway because I want to check the condition of the thermostat. But this isn't something that you have to do, it's just something I'm going to. But I mean, it might be worthwhile doing for yourself anyway. So it's only 3 nuts, and then the whole thing comes off. Should be pretty easy to check. Just on a quick note before I forget, those nuts that hold the thermostat housing on are a 13mm. Okay, so I've just removed the thermostat housing, and it was a bit of a pain to get the hose off, but there's three bolts or 3 nuts that hold it onto these pegs here, along with one, like, you know, wiring harness clamp. What we're going to do now is we're just going to pull out this thermostat, which is pretty easy to do, and we're going to check the condition of it, see how if it's not got any rust or any details or anything like that. So I've just pulled out the thermostat, and the thermostat seems to be in pretty fair condition. The seal is still good. Okay, so I've managed to separate the old hose from the thermostat housing because it was easier to do outside of the car. I used a screwdriver to separate it, like around the inside of the actual hose piece, and then just used multi-grips to help twist it off. But I noticed this hose is definitely seen better days. It makes crunching noises when I squeeze it, and that's a good indicator to say that this hose is basically it's no longer of serviceable life. The other thing as well too is I found a lot of grit on the inside of the actual, where the hose mounted to the actual housing. So I've hit that with a wire brush to get as much of that crud off of there as well too. That'll be helpful. And I've given the actual housing itself a rinse in case there was anything in there as well. But yeah, moral to that, look, I mean, if you're real desperate, you could probably use it as a spare, but I wouldn't trust it personally. So it might get you home, but I wouldn't use it as an emergency situation. But yeah. Okay, so we've just refit the thermostat housing. There's a bolt on the top there. Make sure you add that one there. The one on the side, just next to the thermostat housing in with that little crack to see. You can probably just see it in that little corner just there. And there's one other one on the bottom that's a little bit hard to see on camera, but there's a third one. And best practice is to tighten these down even distribution, so a little bit on the top one, a little bit on the bottom one, a little bit more on the third one, and just keep going around until you've gotten them all tightened down. That way it's not unevenly tightened. So we're just going to check the condition of the top hose as well now while we've got the bottom one off. We've refit that and tightened that down. It hasn't got the hose on there yet. But we'll take this top hose off first and check its condition and see if it's an appropriate spare. I'm going to assume if it's in the same condition as the bottom one, then it probably isn't, but we're going to move it all apart now and have a gander at it. So same deal as the bottom hose, just take off your two hose clamps. This one looks to be in pretty okay condition, but this one here is a bit, you know, it's a bit shit. I'm going to probably put that into a spares box for some other application, but definitely not for a radiator hose anymore. This hose has got some swelling on here, so I reckon it's probably in the same cactus condition as the bottom one. But yeah, we're going to be very gentle in removing this from here because we don't want to damage this radiator tube here. So we're going to put as much like penetrating fluid or whatever we can on there, get it off of that just to avoid breaking the radiator. This will be going on to metal, so it should be okay to just multi-grips off, but we're still going to be gentle there just in case. So as suspected, this hose is pretty well cactus. It's got some corrosion on the inside of it. I checked the inside of the actual block and it's stained orange from when there was probably some issue in the past, but it's not as bad as the inside of this hose. The radiator itself looks and feels pretty okay, but I mean, yeah, it's we'll do further investigations as time goes on, but this hose is cactus as well, so I'm glad that I'm replacing this now rather than later. Alright, cool. So installation of the hose is the exact opposite of removal. Just make sure you put your hose clamps on before you feed the tube on, and then that should just flex over, as it's a new hose, onto that bit of tube on the motor there, and same on the radiator over here. Very easily. Done. And then we'll tighten these up. Okay, so same deal at the bottom. I've just fitted the new radiator hose at the bottom. I've mounted it up to the top on there as well too, so you can see that. Yeah, same deal. We cut a little bit of a length off to reduce a kink, but it's still got a mild kink there, but we'll see how it goes, see if it needs to be trimmed again, but that's pretty easy to do. So. Okay, so now to fill it up, we've just fit our funnel, radiator coolant funnel. And that's got obviously a plunger and a design so they can fill the radiator deliberately. We fill it up all the way until it gets to halfway on the actual bucket of the radiator. And then we start the car, let it run so it can suck radiator coolant throughout the whole system, including in the heater core. But we'll fill it up first until it gets to a point where it doesn't want to take any more coolant. And then we'll run the car. So I've nearly got this car up to operating temperature now, so the thermostat should be opening up or opened up. And we're just waiting for little bits of air to come bubbling out of here, just to get as much air out of the system as we possibly can. Once no more bubbles come out, that's when you've bled the system successfully. We've just had to ocky strap this up to the top of the bonnet though, just so that that plunger doesn't stay shut, so it can actually breathe properly. There we go. So after having taken this car for about a half an hour drive, obviously the car's still warm as such, but we've actually got the coolant level up to the appropriate amount at full, so that's awesome. That's all topped up as correct as it needs to be. It did take a bit for us to burp all the air out with my funnel, but I think it's well worth it because getting as much of the air out as you possibly can. The heater core was also open the whole time, so hopefully that's gotten all the air out it possibly can, but as time goes on, I'll periodically check the fluid level. As that fluid level goes down, that means that more air has escaped the system. And then obviously I'm just going to top it up once it gets to, like, you know, it'll probably only get down to about there with air bubbles, and then it'll sit there for a while, but I'll fill that back up again, make sure it's all correct. Thank you again for tuning in to another video. We've got a pretty sizable trip planned ahead, so I've got this repair I need to have done too. That's all been sorted now, so I've got much more confidence in the amount of carries I'm going to be doing in the next couple of months. So thanks again for tuning in. Catch you next time. Thanks again for tuning in to Nolsey's Outdoors. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment and subscribe. Cheers.